Mrs. Amy Jacques Garvey. Before we start, and I'm being timed, so time is of the essence. I think I must say this. A lot of what I'm going to say may sound very biased. Well, for obvious reasons. I'm the second assistant president general of the UNIA, so that means I support, I bleed red, black, and green. And to me, and I think to a lot of us, the greatest among men and gods is the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. So keep that in mind. So I'm always there to defend and protect his opinions and his philosophy. That's number one. Number two, going forward, when I address Amy Jacques Garvey, I will call her throughout this presentation Mrs. Amy Jacques Garvey or Mrs. Garvey. When I address Amy Ashwood, I will specifically use the term Ashwood. So keep that in mind. Okay. My research and this presentation is based on mostly the works of Dr. Tony Martin. He has established what they call the New Marcus Garvey Library. There are 9 volumes. Volume number 1 is this book, Amy Ashwood, A Tale of Two Amys. In 1976, Dr. Martin wrote Race First, the ideological and organizational struggles of Marcus Garvey and the Universal Negro Improvement Association. A couple years later, in 1981, he started thinking of writing Marcus Garvey Hero, but he finally wrote it in 1983. That's another one of the 9 volumes. And then he wrote Literary Garveyism, poetical works of Marcus Garvey. He wrote African Fundamentalism. He was one who transcribed Message to the People, the course on African philosophy. And of course, there's Race First. The 9th volume is The Philosophy and Opinions of Marcus Garvey. He did not write that book. In fact, even Message to the People, he did not write. All he did was transcribe the notes in discussion with Honorable Charles L. James and his research. Anyway, where am I going with this? So let me start off reading to you page 11 from the preface, XI. It's a paragraph, and this is the issue. He says, Amy Ashwood Garvey's biography was emotionally a difficult one to write. Ashwood was briefly married to Marcus Garvey, the greatest Pan-African mass leader of all time. Most of her very fruitful life thereafter was spent under the shadow of a grievance. She considered herself the wrong party in an eternal triangle in which she was a spectacular loser. Let's start. Let me add, all of these so-called losses that she believed or the grievances that she experienced, please mute yourself. Everyone should be muted.
Doing it now, brother.
Thank you. All of these grievances, perceived and unperceived, real, that Ashwood would claim is practically self-inflicted. And this is the issue. I'm going to give you direct quotes, and I'm going to be as succinct as possible. She's born January 10th, 1897 in Jamaica. Her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Ashwood, were always in Panama. And about 3 years later, 1900, she moves to Panama. All of them. The father was already there. The mother and her brother and another brother moved to Panama. By 1904, the father's still there, but Ashwood and her mother and her brother Michael Jr. moved back to Jamaica. She attends Westwood. Okay. By 1909, she's in a class. The teacher wants to know, African redemption. We need to raise funds to help the poor, unfortunate Africans. Ashwood is completely unhinged. She's unhappy. She reaches out to her father and says, "What is this, African? I didn't know. I thought we were Jamaican." And then the father says to her, "We are African. And at this time, I think you need to meet my grandmother, which is Ashwood's great grandmother." She does. This is 1909. Ashwood is 12 years old. The great grandmother is 93 years old. Her name is Granny Dabas, Wahima Dabas. This is going to be a lifelong journey for Ashwood. I'll give her credit on that. The great grandmother tells her the story of coming from the Ashanti village in Ghana and how it's connected and all of that. And she's from Joaben. Joaben is not far from, is in the Ashanti region. And the leader of the Joaben, Juaben, I'm mispronouncing it obviously, is called the Joabenhini, like the Asantehini, the leader of the Ashantis. Anyway, 1946, Ashwood will travel to Africa and make that connection. This is a solemn celebration. I give her all of the respect, all of the props. From that point on, she decides she's only going to wear African clothes, and she does. From that point of view, it's excellent. Okay. Now, Mrs. Amy Jacques Garvey is born 1895. So she's born actually earlier. The father and mother always wanted a son. They didn't have a son. So they waited and waited. After 5 years, the mother gave birth. It was to a daughter. So Amy Jacques' father is going to raise her like a boy in a good sense, in the sense that the father is going to teach her to be independent, to always be curious, get a newspaper, read it, have a dictionary next to you, be apprised of current events, be knowledgeable, and get this, the father teaches her how to use a revolver and a shotgun. So Amy Jacques Garvey is well-versed. Anyway, the father would like her to go to nursing school in England. So to prepare for that, he sends her to a shorthand school. She does incredibly well. She's very intelligent. And let me add, she did attend Wilmer's. For those of you who are unfamiliar, Wilmer's was like the top school in Jamaica. And not only the top school, but in these places, when I mean these places, I'm talking about the Caribbean, I'm talking about Haiti, where I'm from, I'm talking about Jamaica, and I can speak to Haiti. What happened is these top schools only admitted people that were connected, who practically all of the time had a lack of pigmentation, who were connected, who didn't think race first. So the concept of race first is non-existent. So this is the environment that Amy Jacques Garvey is involved in. But her father educates her, teaches her to be intelligent, to think on your own. Anyway, so she takes a shorthand class. She's the top of the class. So because of that, she's offered a job at a law firm, a legal clerk, all men. The father, being a very doting father, said, "No way, I'm not sending my daughter to work with a whole bunch of men. No, it's not happening." What happens is her father, George, will eventually pass away. So the mother, Charlotte Henrietta, approves of that. And then so she starts working at the law firm. She learns legal terms, she learns law. In fact, she takes over the estate of her father. Oh, by the way, these were not struggling people. Keep that in mind. Jacques, in fact, her grandfather was the first mayor of Kingston. So we're not talking struggling people. No, far from that. I mean, the fact that they had a huge property, they had land, the fact that she could attend Walmart, all of that. So we're not talking struggling people. Anyway, so by 1917, she wants to, this is Amy Jacques, she wants to get to US. I mean, that's the promised land. So she has to convince her mother. Her mother was opposed to it. She speaks to an attorney. The attorney says, well, let her go. The mother was afraid, like a single woman traveling, by herself from the Caribbean into the US. You don't know what's out there, but she approves and eventually goes to that. Now, listen to this. While she's on the ship entering New York, Amy Jacques is asking questions. Where do I go? What do I do? The shipmates on the ship tell her, you don't need to go any further than Harlem, 135th Street, Marcus Garvey. He's got it going on. He's got the UNIA. This is the place to be. This is amazing. This is how big Garvey is. And in my research, what I find is what's so incredible. There is no part of Black life in America and Caribbean life in the Caribbean that Garvey did not intersect, that Garvey did not impose upon. To give you an idea, one of the prime ministers of Barbados, Barrow, his father was the biggest UNIA member in Barbados. I mean, Eugenia Charles, who in 1983, with Reagan, sent Reagan to invade Eugenia Charles from Dominica, to invade Grenada. Her father started the UNIA in Dominica. I mean, it goes on and on. There's no one that was not touched by the UNIA. UNIA was bigger than big. But anyway, getting back to it. So she's already being told, look for this Garvey character. Okay. Skip that, stop there. Let's go back. 1914, June 17, Garvey departs from England, Southampton, to go back to the Caribbean. This is June 17. 11 days later, June 28, some guy in Sarajevo, Bosnia, Yugoslavia, gets assassinated. That's going to start the European World War. This is all happening while he's on the ship. End of June, almost beginning of July, Garvey steps, the ship stops off in Port of Spain. Garvey goes out, walks the streets of Port of Spain. He's a nobody, just a regular black man, dark-skinned black man walking in Port of Spain. Who is he? Nobody knows. That's 1914, July. In 5 years, nobody's bigger in Trinidad than Marcus Mosiah Garvey. I mean, this is just strictly amazing. Anyway, Garvey gets back July 8th. This is recorded in Kingston. His mind is blowing up. He's got it. Don't forget, 1910, he has left Jamaica, and I'm gonna speed this up. He's visited Costa Rica, he's visited Panama, then he's gonna visit Ecuador, Bolivia, Panama, Colombia, Honduras, Nicaragua, and he sees the universal condition of our people at the bottom. He's already thinking, his mind is blowing up. He gets to Europe. He has that audience with Wallace Budge. He works for the African Times and Orient Review. He's got it. And then finally he comes up with the name, what he's gonna call this organization. And then he reads about Booker T. Washington. He reads about every race has a flag but the coon, all of this, blow it up. Does research at British Museum. Gets back to Jamaica. He says, I know what to do. I gotta start an organization. I'm gonna pattern it after the Honorable Booker T. Washington. The same concept, an industrial organization to teach how people to do for self, to work with your hands, build, create, develop, don't beg. He's got it. He starts on July 20th, that's a Monday, 1914, in Kingston on Orange Street. He holds the first UNIA and the organization is established. As per Ashwood claims she was a co-founder of the UNIA. That is patently false. It cannot be. Why do I say that? She claims in her affidavit she met Marcus Garvey June of 1914. That's not possible. Garvey doesn't leave Southampton until June 17. Garvey doesn't step foot back into Jamaica until July 8. Well, midnight July 7, call it July 8. So that's not possible. In his affidavit, and where is this affidavit? Tony Martin had to go to court to, had to hire lawyers to go to court to see these affidavits in New York State. As per Marcus Garvey, and all of this may sound biased because again, I'm a Garvey supporter, I'm UNIA, and I wholly embrace Tony Martin's research. But having said that, the research, the data indicates Garvey does not meet Ashwood until August of 1914. In fact, Garvey establishes the UNIA July 20th, but on his letterhead, he states August 1st. Why does he say August 1st? Because August 1st in the Caribbean is considered Independence Day, Emancipation Day, because August 1 is when the British government, the British Empire, established that slavery would be ended. It started in 1808. It finally got implemented in 1834. And then by 1838, it's full-fledged. Okay, August 1st. And this is why Garvey has his conventions in August. In fact, this is why Garvey starts his conventions on August 1st, for all those reasons. Anyway, so she is a member, Ashwood is a member, that is absolutely true. She is one of the secretaries, that is absolutely true. She is not the general secretary, she was not the co-founder. Okay, why do I make that point? The point is Ashwood had reading ability, yes. She was mercurial, she was peripatetic, she could start a project, absolutely true. She could not complete it. In 2001, there was a documentary that attacked Mr. Garvey called Look for Me in the Whirlwind, done by Stanley Nelson. In 2000, Stanley Nelson interviews a whole bunch of people, Barbara Bear, Robert Hill, and of course, Tony Martin. Tony Martin doesn't get much play, doesn't get much time in the documentary because you can only imagine Garvey, Tony Martin took the legitimate position. Anyway, having said all that, in his interview, and this is 2000, he says what I just recited, that yes, she could start projects, and she did. She started a whole bunch of projects in her life. In fact, Ashwood probably is the most traveled African that I've ever known. She lived in the United States, she lived in the Caribbean, she lived in Europe, specifically England, as well as France. She lived in Africa, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Nigeria. She visited Togo, she visited Niger. There's no place that she hasn't been. She visited Egypt. She's been everywhere. She's well-traveled and knew a lot of people. However, all of it was as a result of her grievance because they were married. Okay, so she meets Garvey in August of 1914, and Garvey is smitten by her. She's very attractive. She's pleasant to the eyes. She's very sophisticated, and she can conduct herself well. Brothers and sisters, for what Garvey was doing, and I'm specifically talking about 1920, Garvey gets in the United States March 24, 1916. Within 3 years, he's gonna have the biggest, big thing ever in the history of humankind. To do all of that, to organize, to plan, to execute, to visit all over the place, that requires an absolute sacrifice of your time. Mr. Garvey could not have time for nonsense. In fact, he was very unhappy with those of us who didn't really want to work because he couldn't understand, I can get so much done. Why can't you do it? Like, just do it because this is for the race. What's my point? My point is, Mr. Garvey, and I'm skipped to 1920, as he's planning for this international convention of the Negro peoples of the world. I mean, nothing is even bigger. On Sunday, August 1st, Harlem gets a glimpse of what Garvey's about when he has his parade. It's got close to 150,000 Africans marching in Harlem. No one's ever seen that. No one, never, ever. He's got cavalry, cars. He's got the African Legion, the African Motor Corps. He's got the Juvenile Division. He's even got the Black Eagle Flying Corps. He's bigger than big. What's my point? To do all of that, you just don't have time for nonsense. You just don't, because this is bigger than big. And then Garvey was the biggest recruiter in the UNIA. Garvey was the biggest recruiter for the Black Star Line Steamship Corporation. So anyway, he meets Ashwood, August 1914. He's smitten by her. She becomes a member of the UNIA. In fact, both her mother and her brother are strong UNIA members. In fact, the address, the headquarters of the UNIA is 30 Charles Street, which is different than Orange Street, where Garvey started it. 30 Charles Street is Ashwood's mother's home. So they used her address. And the reason why they used that address is of finances. So since that address is the headquarters, Garvey could contribute to that household. How do we know this? That's all of these are in the affidavits, in the research. Anyway, so he meets Ashwood, and of course, I mean, the sister is pleasant to look at. I mean, by all accounts, and you're trying to build an organization, you already have someone there and someone appealing. So of course you would be attracted. I certainly would be. Okay, so then don't forget, her father is still in Panama. He was supposedly, they had a bakery. And so all this time, Ashwood is planning to move to Panama to be with the father and the mother and to do business. So Garvey says, no problem. She leaves Jamaica. According to the Jamaica Gleaner, she left Jamaica January 29, 1916. So meaning from August of 1914 until January 29, 1916, they were an item, they were engaged, they were to be together. Clearly, no problem with that. She leaves for Panama. Eventually, Garvey's going to leave March 24th of 1916, a couple months later. Garvey gets to New York. Garvey has a flu. He's knocked out for a couple of days, gets on his feet, finds a job as a printer. He starts speaking. He meets Hubert Harrison. He's going to meet other people. He's going to speak at St. Mark's, Lafayette Street, all these places. And then he has this idea of visiting 38 states, which he does. Garvey just absorbs all of this. I mean, he's like a sponge. And why this is important, put yourself in Garvey's position. He had been in Jamaica, been in Central and South America, been in Europe. All he ever saw was Black people at the bottom. And this is the concept of Universal Negro Improvement Association. We are universally oppressed. We are universally denigrated. Our race is universally attacked. So any solution must involve race, and it must be first, and it must be universal. So I'm gonna speed up. I know time is against me. Anyway, Dr. McIntosh, so Ashwood, Garvey does all of this. She's in Panama. She's running out of funds, as most people do. She writes to Garvey, what's going on? And basically, Garvey has to stop writing her because every time she writes, it's about funds, about money. And those of you that know the history of Garvey himself was borderline bankrupt. I mean, Garvey never cared for himself. All he ever wanted to do was uplift this race. Everything he ever wanted to do. His personal security didn't matter. So then he gets back. She eventually arrives in the United States, October. This is Ashwood, October 1918. Now, keep in mind, Amy Jacques Garvey is already in the United States. She is working at the UNIA. Keep that in mind. So when Ashwood gets back, which is October of 1918, the Negro World newspaper is already established. That was founded on August 17, 1918. It's the biggest thing ever. It's bigger than big. bigger than big. Everybody's reading it. Everybody, the whole planet. Anyway, so they get married on, of all days, December 25, 1919, at Liberty Hall that Garvey and the UNI had purchased. December 27, they head to their honeymoon in Canada. Now, this is Garvey's vision of a honeymoon. I'm going to Canada. There's 1 million Black folk there. And I've got a Montreal division. I've got a Toronto division. I'd like to start an Ottawa division. So while in my honeymoon, let me go recruit. This is more important. So as they're crossing the border, and this is, I don't make this up, Garvey and and Ashwood are arrested for smuggling whiskey on the other side of the Canadian border. Garvey is arrested. Garvey calls UNIA people. They come and bail him out. And, and one of the things you have to keep in mind, these UNIA people, they were well connected. Even though we were struggling, but together we were stronger. Anyway, make long story short, because of the whiskey that was being smuggled, they're arrested. Garvey is let go, Garvey and Ashwood. The person who smuggled the whiskey was Ashwood. She was a known teetotaler. She liked her alcohol. And during that honeymoon, Garvey realized that he had made a serious mistake. When he gets back in the United States in January of 1920, and there's so much that happened, especially January 17, when Prohibition starts. Garvey had the plan, he's gonna be a millionaire. Because of Prohibition, you couldn't travel with alcohol. So Garvey's ship is gonna go to Cuba and sell all this whiskey. Of course, that doesn't happen. There's sabotage. Joshua Cockburn sells him out, the whole thing. Everybody's going against Garvey. Anyway, the point is, when Garvey returns, January of 1920 in the United States, he says to himself, what a mistake I've made. I need a life partner. I need a soulmate. I don't need someone who's ingesting alcohol. I don't need someone who's more interested in dressing. I need a life partner. So he leaves the apartment. This is January of 1920. So they have no relations from that point on. In May of 1920, Ashwood is hospitalized. She is miscarried. Do the math. Do the math. So it from that point on, and then this is 1920 we're talking, leading up to that convention, the greatest spectacle in the history of Africans outside of Africa. And then there's suits and countersuits. All of this while Garvey is planning this convention. In fact, this is the wildest thing. During the convention, a couple times Garvey has to be in court. This is outrageous. Anyway, this goes on. And then finally, so by then the marriage is over. He realized it was a travesty. And since Amy Jacques was his secretary, and by the way, during the honeymoon, when they were arrested, Amy Jacques was there too. Ashwood and Mr. Garvey and Amy Jacques all went on the honeymoon. Garvey went on his honeymoon, but his personal secretary was Amy Jacques. She was there. And so when you read the affidavits and the countersuits, it goes on. But let me wrap this up by reading to you two sections. And I think this says it all. It's page 273 from Amy Ashwood Garvey. And this is painful. This is Amy Ashwood. One of Amy Ashwood's first actions on arriving back, this is in Europe, was to found the Association for the Advancement of Colored People, AACP. In name at least, this organization was practically a carbon copy of the United States-based National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. the organization from which W.E.B. Du Bois and his colleagues had fought against Marcus Garvey. The choice of name was further symptomatic how far Amy Ashwood had traveled away from Garvey's race-first philosophy. Indeed, she shortly afterwards expounded a theory of racial amalgamation, identical with that which Garvey had accused the NAACP of secretly desiring. She wrote, future developments in the New World generally may show Garvey having been too dogmatic about racial matters in the Americas. The New World is the great melting pot of nations and races, and eventually even Black and white will be merged. A new people compounded of the various racial elements from the old world will then emerge. One can see it happen in the United States, in Mexico, What she was propounding here was the antithesis of what Garvey had stood for and what, in fact, he would have characterized as a theory of race suicide. And it goes on and on and on. It's, as I said, this was not easy, but let me read page 220, what happened. With her African roots verified, this is 1946 in Ghana, in Ashanti, Amy assumed an Ashanti name, Ya Bwahima, which had also been Granny Daba's name, her great-grandmother. She also began dressing in African clothing, a practice she continued for the rest of her life. And among her most prized possessions for the rest of her days were 2 kente cloths presented to her by the Asantehene. And finally, everybody she was the speaker of the first day of the 5th Pan-African Congress held in October of 1945 in Manchester, England. All of the big names are there. Kwame Nkrumah, Jomo Kenyatta, Nnamdi Azikiwe, you name it, they were there. All of the big guns were there. And she was the director of the first day. Now, let me add, as being a Garveyite, as being a supporter of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, one of the things that pains me is the frequenting of so many anti-Garveyites. This is a real problem for me. Ashwood frequented George Weston, who stole money from the UNIA, was expelled. She frequented Lionel Antonio Francis, the biggest thief in the UNIA, who stole the property in Belize under the terms of the UNIA Inc. She frequented W.A. Domingo, who mercilessly attacked Garvey and who testified against him in the government fraud case. She frequented Herbert Harrison, who himself was a genius, but he turned against Garvey. And in fact, in the marital case, he turned against Amy Ashwood also. And I know, Dr. Asante, you'll forgive me on this one. I know a lot of us look up to George Padmore and CLR James. I do not. I don't think highly of these individuals. In fact, CLR James writing The Black Jacobin, please give me a break. If not for Dr. Carruthers, we would never know the history of Haiti, never. No Haitian, no French, no Caucasian, nobody had ever done a true analysis of that revolution in Haiti. So Dr. Carruthers, if not, until Carruthers came along, CLR James' book, Black Jacobin, was the standard, and I'm so glad for Dr. Carruthers. But anyway, George Padmore and CLR James, these are silly, misguided, self-hating Black men who love and chase white women. This is all they do, frequenting, voting with them, telling you, oh, socialism is the answer, while denying their African roots. I could continue forever, but my name is Raymond Dugue, and I'm at your service. Thank you.
Brother Raymond, we thank you. And you certainly gave a lot of grist for the mill. You gave us a lot to think about. And I will say this, you back up with evidence your assertions. Not that everybody's going to agree with all of them, but you certainly gave us a summary of the two Amy's, and anyone who wants to look into it more deeply, you've given us the sources of certain information.
Excuse me, Dr. McIntosh, I even
Yes, sir.
forgot. I mean, I got so carried away. I have to mention this. Uh, February 23rd, 1923, Amy Jacques Garvey publishes The Philosophy and Opinions of Marcus Garvey. This is our Holy Scriptures. She stood by Mr. Garvey, believed in race first, and always defended him. When he was incarcerated in the penitentiary in Atlanta, she single handedly continued that work. So, I mean, I spent too much time on Ashwood, but please accept my apologies. Thank you.
No apology necessary, Brother Raymond. I think everybody could hear the passion in your voice as you discuss this. And, you combine the passion with work and research that most of us haven't done. So anybody who doesn't like what they heard, they can go do some other research, or they can, anybody who, wants to verify the things you said and the assertions you make, you gave them, as I said before, the sources that they can go to. Brothers and sisters, we are so grateful to Brother Raymond for that presentation. If you can, I'm going to put it on a different view just for a second. It's called a gallery view, so everybody can be there. If you will put your camera on and just give him some applause, I think the presentation was worthy of that. All right, I'm going to go back to the speaker's view, because now we're going to hear from Dr. Molefi Asante. Before I introduce him, I'll do the same thing we would do as if we were live. I always have to do a pitch so that we can continue. Yikwe Amma said, giving and receiving, all of life is twin. Let he who would cast the spell of death separate the two. Now, you can't separate giving and receiving. You receive. CMOTAP is asking you to always keep, if we want to continue to receive, if we want to continue to have our programs, if we want to continue to attend even our structure. You can say, well, you own the structure. Amos Wilson disabused us of that misconception. You can't own anything in this system. As long as you have to pay insurance and taxes and these types of expenses that the state is in charge of, those things can get to be the amount of a rent. Our insurance is about, I believe, $9,000 plus a year now, just on that building. So we have to, fortunately, our community has always answered us. We're not in any kind of financial problem, nothing like that, but we have the responsibility to stay out of any type of financial problem. So if we want to stay ahead of the curve, just donate. Someone was good enough to point out to me that I put the wrong area code for my phone number in there. I put 349 instead of 347. I have put into the chat maybe 8 times now the correction. So in that chat, I ask you to do 2 things. One, I ask you to make a pledge to CMOTAP, to say, I'm going to give this. I'm not asking for your rent money. I'm not asking for your kids' tuition money. I'm asking for every cent of your experimental vaccine money. I'm asking for every cent of your Atlantic City money. I'm asking for every cent of your cigarette money. I want you to donate it to CMOTAP. You have 3 options. You can give it in a check, and you can mail it to the address that's there. You can do it by Cash App, which I presented here. I'm not asking you to do GoFundMe, because we've met our goal in GoFundMe, and now I'm in the what's turning to be a difficult task of getting that money from GoFundMe into CMOTAP. We're working on that right now. So right now, I want you to look in your chat. If you don't know how to use it, you hover your cursor at the bottom of the screen. In the middle, there's a little box that says chat. You open it. When you get to the chat, you have an option of speaking to everyone or speaking just to one particular person that you might want. One good thing about using a little bit of the time is that it has allowed more people to get here. We started with about 15 people. Now we're up to 51 people. the late ones really missed a terrific presentation, but that's the bad news. The good news is you can get that anytime from UNIA. Brother Raymond, you should give them some contact information so they can see your next presentations. You can go to the Rock and get any kind of information. The Rock is at 13205 Merrick Boulevard. It's a supermarket. You can buy all your groceries in Queens from a Black source, totally Black owned. It was purchased with a collective way, the way that Garvey raised money. We had investors. The amount of money we had to donate for one share was the equivalent in 2020 of the $5 that people had to donate back during the teens and the 20s for Mr. Garvey. So again, look in your chat, look at the bottom of your chat, the last messages that you got. Send us a Cash App donation, send us a check in the mail, and write in the chat your pledge. We appreciate it. People have answered already. I don't want to make people's business public, but people are responding to the call. Now today, our speaker, I'm not even going to try to cite his credentials. When we were fighting to get him to be the director and the curator and stuff at the Schomburg, which was we were not successful at that particular time. This brother had a 70-page resume. My resume at the end of a career is one page. It's one page, and I've had some big jobs, but this brother has been doing the business of the race around the world. I would be remiss too if I didn't mention that we've been joined. Great people join the Zoom just to hear him. I see Dr. Baba Leonard Jeffries is here with us today. Let's have a hand clap for him. And he came here to hear Dr. Asante, and all of us can learn from him. But Dr. Asante is the founder of the doctoral program there in Black Studies at Temple Africana Studies. I don't know the latest name, whatever it is. He is the founder of it if you want to learn about Africa at Temple. And he has really, his greatness is as an educator. I'll leave it to him to tell you how many PhD theses he's, supported. And, sometimes you look, I was able to keep up with how many books he'd written at about 77. I looked the other day, I think it's up to 92. I will end it just by saying he's written more books than most of us have thoughts. Please welcome to the mic our greatest scholar of this time, Dr. Molefi Asante.
Asante Sana, my brother, I am so happy. I'm very, very happy to be here. And I just want to tell you that from the very early days of Simotep, when you and Sister Betty really got me involved over the Henry Louis Gates incident, I have always admired Simotep, and I've always appreciated what you have done, not just for New York, but for our people all over the world. And I want to thank you so much, Dr. McIntosh, for your leadership and for your consistency, your stability, your courage, your willingness to use your talents, your medical talents and scientific abilities to help us advance. I think that is what we all must do. And then I want to just say to my dear brother, Dugue, Dugue is, he's one of these personalities that if you around him long enough, it's infectious. The incredible power of his speech, the character that he exhibits, the knowledge that he has. I just truly appreciated his conversation and his information. I would like to just point out a couple of things. First of all, regarding his comment about George Padmore, and you don't have to make any apologies to me about George Padmore. George Padmore was great in his own regard. in what he did. He was a great propagandist. But in my latest book, which is called An Afrocentric Pan-Africanist Vision, George Padmore comes under lots of criticism. And I'll tell you basically why I have a lot of criticism for George Padmore. I haven't yet got to a full analysis of C.L.R. James, but I hope to soon. But I tell you what happened with George Padmore, and then I'll move quickly to my conversation about Garvey. George Padmore came from Trinidad to the U.S. When he was in his early 20s. And immediately as he got to Washington, D.C., he was basically captured by the Communist Party. And he became very early out of that a member of the Communist Party, and was taken by them to Moscow. And then out of his experience in Moscow, then throughout Europe and so on, what he became was Russia's most powerful and provocative African propagandist for communism. That is the call of George Padmore. Now, he used, as he began to learn more and more, African information and African people's issues to advance his cause against what he considered to be the Western capitalist corrupt governments, which he was correct in that. So here's the problem, though. By 1945, when you get the Manchester Congress, the Manchester Congress was dominated mainly by Padmore. Most people think it was Du Bois's Congress. It was Du Bois's Congress, but almost in an honorary sense, it was Du Bois's Congress. It was Padmore's Congress. And Padmore was the one who molded the idea of a socialist Pan-Africanism. And that socialist structure for Pan-Africanism is at the root of the problem with Pan-Africanism today. That is what I have argued in my latest book, that they never had the opportunity to even consider an Afrocentric Pan-Africanism. They never had there was never discussion about what is African culture. You had sitting around those tables in Nkrumah, you had Kenyatta there. They never really discussed, as Africans, what should Pan-Africanism look like? They were all beguiled by George Padmore's socialist Pan-Africanism. And I think fundamentally they abandoned African culture. And that's where I want to enter with the question of Garvey. And fortunately for me, in 1970, I think it was 1970, I was able to visit Jamaica and to visit Amy Jock's home. And she was still alive. I think she died maybe a couple of years, 3 years later. And I never knew that I would, that I would later meet her sons. I met both of them, Marcus Jr. as well as Julius. And then Julius and I traveled to Senegal and with a couple of other people, and went out to K2, to the tomb of Sheikh Anta Diop. And that 5-hour dirt road trip really bonded us in terms of just a conversation about his father and about his own life. So I am very close to Garvey in every way. And in fact, I see Garvey as one of the great giants, intellectual giants. Most people think of him mainly in political terms, but that's because they haven't read Garvey's writings. If you read his writings, you'll find not only was he a great essayist, but he was a great poet. And not only was he a great poet, but he held incredible conversations and communications with people throughout the world, including the Emperor of Japan. So Garvey, in every way, to me, was the phenomenal African, and his understanding of the world was profound. And I just want to, before I start talking about him in terms of his one of the main talks that he gave. I just want to explain from what I see, and having known Tony Martin and read his works as well as Robert Hill's works on Garvey. The interesting thing about Garvey is that he came out of an era, the latter part of the 19th century and the first part of the 20th century, in which this notion of race, which had been urged upon the world mainly in the last 500 years by the Europeans, and it existed not necessarily as race, but certainly as caste, for example, among the Hindu and among the Jews. This whole notion of Noah's children, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, had also given us, I think somebody needs to mute, but I don't know who that is. But if you can mute, that would help the presentation. But it's very, very important to understand that we have had over the years a very interesting relationship with Garvey's notion of race and race first. And the reason I raise this interesting question is because Garvey was in this era of the 19th and 20th century affected, as we all have been affected, by what I call the racial ladder. The racial ladder is the creation by Europe of this notion of white supremacy, with the Europeans, the Aryans and the Nordics at the top, and the so-called Alpine Europeans, the French like that, and the Mediterranean Europeans under them, the Italians and the Greeks, and then the Asians and the Arabs, and then the Native Americans and Africans at the bottom. That's the typical racial ladder. You will find it in different European philosophers and sociologists, different kinds of structures, but ultimately you always have white supremacy and you always have Black inferiority. And that notion of race took great hold in Germany, and particularly even during the time of when Du Bois went to Germany to study at Berlin at the Humboldt. It was the same problem. I mean, it was a deep problem that the German notion of der Rasse was also that there was a certain spirit that went with it, der Geist. But this notion of German race was what they would refer to as culture. This is why I wanted to raise this. This is a very fascinating notion of the use of race by trying to tie, they would, when they say the German race, they saw the German race, for example, as different from the Irish race. They saw, even though we now, when we look at it, we see it all as white, and we all say white race or white racial supremacy and so on. But what the Germans had interpreted this to be was that there was a special way of viewing the world, a special cultural way that came directly from the Greeks to the Germans. And in fact, they didn't care very much about the contemporary Greeks. They were much more concerned about what they call the ancient Greeks, because the Germans skipped over the contemporary Greeks. They didn't think they were the Mediterranean whites. They were lower. But when they went back to talk about Socrates and Plato and Aristotle, they said that those were the direct descendants of the Germans and of the contemporary Germans. And that's where you get the stupid comments like people like Trump, who say, well, I'm of German blood, so therefore I'm of German culture. I'm a German. So that notion of race and culture combined in their minds. Now I'm raising this because when I have read and reread Garvey, it's very clear to me that Garvey understood race in a strong cultural sense. And I'll show you how that works out. And particularly, I'll bring in a conversation that is going on right now at Cornell University in Ithaca, New York, right upstate from you in New York City, regard that how this works. One of the things Garvey said is there's no future for those who deny their past. And I've always thought this was a profound document or statement. You cannot ignore your ancestors and have wisdom. The road from ignorance to wisdom runs always through memory. And if you don't have memory, you don't know your ancestors, you don't appreciate them, you don't learn from them. There's nothing that you have. You can never gain wisdom. And that's why I always tell people that even though I came from Georgia as a descendant of peasants, enslaved people who were the builders of this country in many ways, there is, to me, something that I could say, and that is that Georgia is where I was born, but my ancestors are from the mother continent. I'm an African. The original humans are Africans. My ancestors from Yoruba and Nubia, Nigeria and Sudan. I am Fannie Lou Hamer. I am Shashi McIntyre. And Marimba Ani they're my sisters. I am a mentee to Sheikh Anta Diop, to Teofilo Obenga, to John Henry Clark, to Dr. Ben, to Abdias Nascimento, to all of these great minds who have contributed to our understanding of culture. I'm a brother to all sisters and brothers who fight for freedom. I oppose all oppressions, and I assert as much of Garvey's brilliance as I can. I am a brother, even though he always tells me a younger brother, to Leonard Jeffries. And I'm a brother to Dr. Rosalind Jeffries as well. What I've learned from my peers, and I'm a brother to Dr. Maulana Karenga, what I've learned from my peers and my mentors and relationships with Julius Garvey, who traveled, as I told you, with me to the tomb at K2. And even, I mean, Julius even traveled with me to Costa Rica. It was wonderful to hear Brother Dugue talk about Garvey being in Panama and in South America, and then certainly throughout what's called Central America, Honduras and Costa Rica. Costa Rica has a whole day of celebration for Marcus Garvey. They still have the UNIA building in Limon, Costa Rica. So that's a relationship that I find, that when Garvey went there to rally the railroad workers, those Black people who had come from Jamaica to build a railroad between Limon and San Jose up in the mountains, and the work of the banana farms, that we find Garvey finding one thing that is so important, and that is that there is a commonality of our culture. This is the point that I want to make today, that for him, whether you were from Costa Rica, whether you were from Panama, whether you're from Haiti, whether you're from Jamaica, whether you're from the USA, that we have a common African culture. That's what he is meaning. And this is why he says that we have to use our education and in order to support our people. If you are educated and you don't support your people, then you're not educated. It's like the Odu Ifa says. I mean, if you think you have a degree, a PhD or something from some big school in New York State or Pennsylvania, and you don't use your education to encourage and support your people, then your education doesn't belong to you. This is what Odu Ifa says. You can be educated, but if you do not have good character, the education is not yours. You got to have Iwa Pele. If you don't have Iwa Pele, you don't have any education. If you have children and you don't have Iwa Pele, you don't have children. You see, if you have money and you don't have Iwa Pele, you don't have money, because the money doesn't belong to you. You see, So this is what Garvey knew. He understood cultural solidarity. And for him, cultural solidarity did not mean hating all white people. It meant hating those who maim you, trying to kill you. He says, if they try to kill you, you're protecting yourself. And Garvey was for solidarity, but I always ask people, what is solidarity for? He was for solidarity, but what do we have solidarity for? We have to teach our children two things, in my judgment. And you know, I'm an Afrocentrist, and I believe that you have to teach your children Afrocentricity and character. Those are the two most important ingredients in teaching your children something. You teach your child that he or she is fundamental to all phenomena, that they are in the center of the narratives of the world, whatever the narrative is, whatever the discussion, whatever the course, if it's about beauty, if it's about love, if it's about values, if it's about history, you put yourself in the center of it. You have to interrogate what your ancestors have done, because that is fundamental. And so you also have to have good character. If you got good character, then all the other things will work together. But you got to have good character. But Afrocentricity is fundamental, you see, to that, because by having Afrocentricity, what we know is that we're able to at least see the world from our own point of view. We got to find how to interrogate it through our culture. That's why we learn history, and that's how we learn social studies. To know something. I mean, I was in Ethiopia back in last December, about a year ago, and I could see developing in Ethiopia what is happening in Ethiopia now. I understood what was going on between the people in Tigray and the rest of the country. I understood that the Oromo population, which is the largest population in the country, had been for so many years a population that felt like it has been suppressed politically, and that the Amharas and the Tigrayans had in fact been the people who, even though they have smaller populations, have ruled over the whole country. You could feel that tension in there. And now that you have a president who recognizes the majority of the people, then you're going to have, of course, people who are trying to fight against that, because it is not what they have known for the last many decades. So it's important that we understand that Garvey understood all of these things. And this is why I say he was clear about culture, because he said, if you believe in God, then worship God through the spectacle of Ethiopia. What he's talking about here is not through the eyeglasses of Ethiopia, but he's saying, if you believe in God, there must be, and Ethiopia for him was a trope for all of Africa. If you worship God, look at African religion. Look through those eyes. And he was not specifically talking about Christianity here. He's just talking about through the eyes of the Black people of the world. For 200, here's what he said, for 250 years, when he gave that speech, we were maimed, we were brutalized, we were ravaged in every way. But we are men, we have hopes, we have passions, we have feelings, we have desires, just like any other race. And do you think, this is what he asked, do you think that it is unreasonable that we, the Blacks of the world, should raise a cry of Africa for the Africans? Garvey was very clear. He was not just talking about those of us in Jamaica or the USA, or those of us who were in Haiti. He didn't make those separations. That's why I wanted to bring up the Cornell situation. I just heard about it last week, and it really sort of, it really gave me pause, because quite frankly, over the last year and a half, or 2 years and a half, I have also been in debate or discussion with the people who have created an organization called ADOS. And you may have heard of this organization called African descendants of slaves, or American descendants of slaves, I think they're called, and which I think is a bad choice for an organization, and it's an organization that is against every principle of Pan-Africanism. And I have said this, and I've decried the fact that Cornel West took up this clarion call for in support of ADOS. I'm like, well, that's because you don't understand culture, and you don't have an understanding of the historical narratives of African people, that you would want to separate African people for any reason. That is totally anti-Garvey. And I think that's what we have to fight against. And because the whole aim is always to separate us, divide us, and get us fighting with each other. This is Paul Gilroy's thing with the Black Atlantic. To get the Black people in Britain and the United States fighting against people from the continent of Africa, and saying that there's something different about us because of the Atlantic Ocean and the cold water that we have between us. You see, but this is a constant struggle, and that's why Garvey was not just talking about supporting Blacks in the U.S. or supporting Blacks in any other place. He was talking about how we as African people can be together. And at Cornell University, the students who were some of them members of the Africana Studies department, many of them Caribbean students, broke off and said, we want our own department. We want a Caribbean Studies department. We don't want to be a part of Africana Studies. And that's just last week. And they've gone out to support, to get many of the predominantly white departments to support their attempt to separate from the Africana Studies department. And now you think about that. You think about how the young people that I worked with when we demonstrated at UCLA and sat in at the chancellor's office and worked from 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning to write curricula for the universities, and some of us were arrested, and some people got 20 years for sitting in the offices of presidents and so on. And you know, it was a horrible time. And think of it now, those Black students, they were not working just to have Black studies for African American students. They were fighting for the African people, regardless of where you were from. You could be from Brazil. You could be from Colombia. You could be from, Trinidad, Barbados. We were fighting for everybody. Now you got people at Cornell, this incredible program that James Turner, with his brilliance and electric oratory, helped to create. And now you got people who are coming behind him who are trying to break it apart and destroy it. That is not right, and it's not correct. See, so it is Garvey's call for us that it is not unreasonable for us that we should raise a cry for Africa, for the Africans. It is up to us, he said, to make the United States of Africa, and it cannot be done on religion. I don't think it cannot be done on Islam. It cannot be done on Christianity. They will not deliver this dream. It must be done by free and courageous Black women and men, not afraid to speak up for African culture. And I've been calling on African governments to do it now, not wait for selfish reason to do it when sometimes when you talk to the presidents, they want to say, well, we'll do it next year, 5 years, 10 years from now. No, do it now. They have to do it now. It's just like I tell people who talk about diversity. Well, we need to set up a commission for diversity. No, you don't. You know what you got missing. Do it. Create it. Make it happen. When Garvey was alive, he said Africa was sleeping. But today it is African leaders who are sleeping. We right now, we don't have anyone standing in Mugabe's place to speak for Africa. No, nobody. We thought Mnangagwa was going to do it, but he's calling for the whites to come back and take over the lands of Zimbabwe. He's doing that right now. But we cannot honor our past, and we cannot honor our people until we know it. And that's why right now in my next edition, fourth edition of the History of Africa, I'm trying to show that the Inzalo Ilanga, which is more than 200,000 years old, is the largest urban development on the face of the earth. That these stone pillars that are found there are far older than the 3,000-year-old Stonehenge that you find in the UK. And one of the things that Garvey said, he had a beautiful saying: no race has the last word on culture and on civilization. They do not know, he says, what we are capable of. They do not know what we are thinking. They're thinking in terms of dreadnoughts and battleships and airplanes, submarines. You know what we're thinking about? Then he smiled and he said, that's our own private business. But the first word on culture and civilization for us must be African. Black men and women of Kemet, Black men and women of Nubia, Black women and men of Yoruba, of Monomotapa, of every place working together, because we created the fundamentals of civilization. Garvey knew this, and he said it like this. This is what he said: Black men in Carthage, Black men of Ethiopia, of Timbuktu, of Alexandria, gave the lights of civilization to the world. Ethiopia shall stretch forth her hands unto God, and princes shall come out of Egypt. This was an eloquent statement. Carthage, we know, is Cartadas, which is an old African term for the town that the so-called Phoenicians, who themselves were Black people, actually, from the Eritrean region of Africa, who had settled a little while in Southwest Asia and then went on over to Africa and settled in what is now Tunisia and Cartadas. Black men of Ethiopia, of Timbuktu, of Alexandria. And Alexandria, we know the ancient name of Alexandria was Rakastus. It was not Alexandria, but he understood that all those places that had been occupied by people who were non-African, didn't come from our culture. He understood that those places were civilized by Africa. Back in the days of slavery, he said race mixture and race miscegenation had occurred because the African woman had no protection from the slave master. Revisionists now want to say, and I see some of these, sometimes the revisionists make these love relationships on the plantation. But they were mostly about power and domination. One of the things that they say in Ancestry.com is that about 30% of all Black paternity, that is, you trace Black families back to the oldest male figure in America, and it's a white person. And Hakeem Adabuti has said so much so in his autobiography, Yellow Black. Because if those who like Du Bois believe, this is what Garvey said, if they believe that the race problem will be solved in America through higher education, they will walk between now and eternity and never see the problem solved. God made man Lord of his creation and gave him possession and ownership of the world. And you have been so damn lazy. This is Garvey talking. He said, darn. You've been so darn lazy that you've allowed the other fellow to run away with the whole world. And now he's bluffing you and telling you that the world belongs to him and that you have no part in it. And this is why I say, brothers and sisters, if you do not have power, wealth, or capacity in this world, you almost have nothing. You have to teach our children, and this is what Garvey would say this, teach our children to work and build for wealth. That is more than making a salary. It is retaining your money to make something valuable for your people. You must think big, large, and grand. And this is, I guess, why I love Marcus so much, is because he wanted us to dream big dreams, not small dreams, big dreams. There's no reason why we should have small dreams. We can create a new world. Our people gave the world the fundamental cultural forms, spiritual forms, reflective forms, meditative forms, rituals, gave us those things to reinforce the values that would make us the people that we ought to be. In Afrocentricity, I tried to explain we didn't have to apologize for anything. Maya Angelou got it right when she said, we owe no one. Our debts have been paid. And my thing is that, no, things have been stolen from us. We don't have it, that we didn't have any debts. So we don't have to apologize for anything. And Garvey said, after future generations shall have in their hands the guide by which they shall know the sins of the 20th century. I know, and I know you too believe in time, where we shall wait patiently for 200 years if need be, to face our enemies through our posterity. When our enemies are satisfied. In life, he says, I shall come back, or in death, even to serve you as I served before. In life, I shall be the same. In death, I shall be a terror to foes of African liberty. If death has power, then count on me to be the real Marcus Garvey I would like to be. That's what he said. And so when I hear a young brother like Brother Raymond talk, I'm saying Garvey is still with us. He's still alive. And that brother gave us such a powerful presentation on the two Amens. And it was brilliant because I've rarely heard people give the historical timeline that he gave. And one of the things I would like for us to always remember is that we need to say in our own hearts, dear Marcus, we heard you then. And although it has not been 200 years, it's only been about 80 years since you left. We've taken up the baton and we'll run this race. And if we do not complete it in our time, our posterity yet to come will confront the enemies of Africa with the same verve and fervor and power as you have always shown. We are your children. We are the ones who will and who must be for the sake of our people's sanity, cry out against all forms of racism and cultural oppression, and make our children victims in psychological, mental, physical, and spiritual ways. We are the children of Marcus Garvey. And if we understand that, we'll know when Marcus said, if I may come, this is what he said, in an earthquake or a plague or a pestilence. You know, you look around, people talking about COVID-19. If I may come in an earthquake or a plague or a pestilence, or if God would help me, then be assured that I shall never desert you and make your enemies triumph over you. Will I not go to hell 1,000,000 times for you? If I should die in Atlanta, my work will only just then begin, for I shall live in the physical or the spiritual world to see the day of Africa's glory. Any leadership, listen to this. This is brilliant. Any leadership, and I've said it 1,000 times, any leadership that teaches you to depend upon another people for leadership that will enslave you. If it teaches you to depend upon another race, another people, another community, is a leadership that will enslave you. It will, you cannot do it. You cannot, there's no way that Mnangagwa in Zimbabwe, the president of Zimbabwe, can depend on the white farmers that he's inviting back to Zimbabwe to give them leadership. It will not happen. The Chinese in Africa, and you go to Africa today, you see them all over Africa. Thousands of Chinese. And there should be nothing wrong with thousands of Chinese in Africa or with thousands of Africans in China, except that in Africa, the Chinese, our people are often depending on them for leadership. They do what is in their best interest. They don't do what is in the best interest of African culture. Look at what happened to the Kurds who fought on the same side as the Americans fighting in Iraq and in Syria. When the Kurds fought with us, with Trump, now Turkey has moved against the Kurds, and America abandoned them. So, okay, y'all fought for us, that's good, but we're not gonna fight for you. If you cannot do what other men have done, this is what Garvey said, and other nations have done, what other races have done. If you cannot do what other men have done, what other races have done, then you had better die. And then he asked his audience, can we do it? And of course, the response on that part of the African people is, yes, we can do it. And we have done it 1,000,000 times, but we must do it 1,000,000 times more. The black man, Garvey said, has to forget his hero worship of other races. Create and emulate heroes of his own. We must canonize our own saints, create our own martyrs, and elevate to positions of fame and honor black men and women who have made their distinct contributions to our racial history. You know what? This is as true today as it has ever been. And one of the things that I've tried to do with the field of Africology at Temple University is to try to teach my students how we institutionalize concepts. There's no reason for, Dr. McIntosh mentioned about my 92 books. Okay, I've written 92 books, probably more books than any other African-American, scholarly books than any other African-Americans. I am not asking that people canonize me, but I'm asking that what people do is take these examples and use these examples for our children. That's all Garvey was asking for. Why we find hero? Why are we going to find a hero in some European who has written 2 books or 3 books? Why are you going to do that? I went to Africa. I had to do this in the continent of Africa, in Cameroon. I went to the University in Cameroon at Yaoundé, and the brother was telling me of all these white guys. Some of them I've debated, like Sousa Santos. I'm sorry, and he says, we're using their books in our class. And so I said, what black books are you using at the University of Yaoundé? You couldn't think of one. What African-American scholars do you know? You don't know any, but they know all these European scholars. And I'm like, whoa, what? That's what Garvey is saying. We have to forget our hero worship. There are other people. There are no races, no culture any greater than African culture. There are no people who have achieved anything more than we have achieved. We got to get out of this. Create your own awards. As I told somebody, if they offered me ever in life a Nobel Award, I would give it back to them. Because there's no one more respectful of my history than my own people. And I have to wait till my own people say, oh, you know what, Asante, that's a good book. You got to do that. I got to do that for you. You got to do that for me. That is the only way we get out of this. Otherwise, our people work and fight to get an award from a European. You can't do it. Create our own martyrs. The people who died for us, who died fighting for us. The people who died fighting for us. Elevate those people to positions of fame and honor. We do it locally in some places, and we have done it among ourselves. I mean, this particular group in Simmertop, we do it. We honor Dr. John Henry Clark and Dr. Ben. We honor Dr. Jeffries here and there, but we got to do more. We have to say these are the examples that for us signify dignity and strength, people who understand our culture. It cannot be a hit and miss operation. It takes strategy. It takes will. It takes courage. It must be a philosophy of honor to each other, respect for service to the people, glory to the collective memory of the warrior classes who have pushed against all odds. When Bobby Seale was in Philadelphia, without much to do, and people talking about Bobby Seale walking the streets and he seemed aimless and what's going on, I brought him to Temple University. A lot of people don't know this, as a gesture that we would not allow those who sacrificed for us to suffer without support. Whether it was Maulana or Leonard or Wade or Asa or whoever, Marimba, in times of difficulty, people need to know that we will come to them and if they're called. This is what Garvey meant. And I must say that Bobby Seale, for example, repaid me when I invited him to the 25th anniversary of the Journal of Black Studies. I said, I want you to come and I want Maulana, my best friend, to come. And they both showed up. That's because of the dignity that we have to have and respect each other. And this is what Garvey meant. Our heroes are countless, but let us begin to count them. The world is indebted to us for the benefits of civilization. He said they stole our arts and sciences from Africa. Then why should we be ashamed of ourselves? And I'm going to be closing soon, but he knew what he was talking about. Mummification, pyramids, Hatshepsut, 42 queens of Nubia, biology, astronomy, geometry, philosophy, math, the pyramids, all of these things. We were what our gift to the world was. And then finally he says, our union must know no clime, no nationality, but let us all hold together in every country, in every clime, making a racial empire upon which the sun shall never set. Let no voice but your own speak to you from the depths. Let no influence but your own rouse you in time of peace and time of war. Hear all, but attend only to that which concerns you. I mean, you got to listen to that. And I tell my students, first of all, if you're going to give me all these other voices, I don't care what your subject is, what your essay is. Your essay is about this, that, or the other. My question to you is, what voices speak to you from the depths of your own history? How you influenced by somebody else from some culture, but you don't hear your own voices. You don't attend to your own ancestors. But in your own homes and everywhere, my brothers and sisters, I'm just repeating Garvey, wherever possible, you must teach the higher development of science to your children and make sure that we have a race of scientists par excellence. Because if we do this, if we follow the path of our ancestors, if we understand the truth that they have brought to us, then what we will know is that we, as African people, will not only survive, but we will forever be victorious because our consciousness will have been changed. Asante Sana, Hotep, brothers and sisters.
I say. Dr. Mack, you're on mute.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I wanted to say before I even, I have to comment on Dr. Asante's lecture before we do anything else. I mean, like, uh, this brother inspires me every time I hear him. You know, he takes what he does, he makes it look so effortless. And that's because of so many hours of work that he has put into where he has a wealth of knowledge and associations he can make on the spot, in addition to whatever he's prepared for that particular lecture. And I wanted to know, I really heard something you said today. I'm not even going to comment on it externally, but I had recent experiences that let me know just what you said. You know what I mean? Like, you got to really figure out whose feet are, you know, what people's feet are propelled by. You know, they're responding to uh, voices from their own experiences, or do they have some external locus of control? You know, and people want to struggle. I mean, yeah, we have to struggle, but are we supposed to be the battering ram for somebody else's struggle?
Yeah.
You know, it's sad, but these are questions we all have to ask ourselves as we figure out how to use our time and how to use our energy.
Yes.
I want to say that I've seen few speakers work so much in complementarity as Brother Dugue and Brother Molefi today. I have it on the view where you can see everybody. Can I get a round of applause for these two brothers? One of the biggest signs of respect somebody can give you is to prepare when they come. And these brothers have prepared uh, some of the preparation over a lifetime and some of it specifically for today. And I just personally have to express my appreciation. I'm going to give all of you a chance also to express your appreciation. And I'm going to take care of one more housekeeping thing. I'd like you, if you want to pledge something to CMOTAP, to put it in the chat, to put your pledge in the chat privately to me. And then I would like you to use one of the two options that I put there on the board. I said you can give to, you can mail to CMOTAP, and I gave you an address. You can do a Cash App, and I gave you a Cash App. I told you that, yes, there is a way you could do it with PayPal, but I'm staying away from that. Why? Because we did it through GoFundMe, and I'm having a little trouble getting our money. We got donations, but now to get that money into CMOTAP's actual coffers and bank account is another struggle that we're going to be successful with. But, you know, I would prefer those two methods. So people, you know, like, if I put 5 methods down there was somebody who would ask me, do you have Chinese Cash App? You know what I mean? But no, the ones I offered were there. You want to use a credit card, you can use that Cash App thing. If you want to do it in an old fashioned, you take a check and mail it. We appreciate whatever you give to the organization. And at this point, I'm going to, I know Brother Raymond has a real, because I'm going to be late for class. He's an instructor. So I'm going to say, if anybody has a question for Brother Raymond, to please put it in the chat right now. If you have a question for Brother Raymond, put it in the chat to everyone right now. And then I'll read it to Brother Raymond, and he'll be able to answer it. Okay, I'm looking. Thank you, Dr. Califani. Thank you, everyone. All right, I don't have any questions for you specifically now, Brother Raymond. If they come up later, I'll give them to you when I get to class. You know I'm going to be to class late today, so thank you so much, both of you, for your participation. Anyone with questions for Dr. Asante? I mean, we can, if we can use some discipline and limit our questions to 30 seconds to 1 minute, somewhere within that range. We don't really want any statements at first. We'll save those for the end. And again, we got to keep them to the same thing. 30 seconds to 1 minute. Who have questions for either Dr. Asante or Dr. Or Brother Raymond Dugue. Please raise your hand Raise your hand, and this view that we have here. I have Brother Dugue. He wants to say something.
Yeah,
Find your name, Brother Dugue. Oh, you okay? You on speaker? That's right.
yeah. Dr. Asante, I have a 4 o'clock class that I'm teaching. It's the UNI orientation class. So time is against me, but I wanted to thank you for your presentation, and I always look forward to you. And as I said, since I was going to be bringing not the uplifting news, I wanted to get that off the bat and let you speak. And the question I've got for you is, you're saying about ADOS and what's going on in Cornell, but here's a more fundamental question: does that really surprise us? I mean, isn't the plan from the master to always divide and conquer, always trying to sow division? And before you answer that, and I'm so glad what you mentioned about Padmore, because that was one thing I was always bothering me. Like, we all say we're Pan-Africanists, socialists, or whatever, but it should have always been race first. Please answer. Thank you.
Okay, well, in the first question, no, it shouldn't have surprised us. But I think what surprises me is that the foundation we built at Cornell was not strong enough
All right.
to refrain from having these people to bring in the separation, because after all, Dr. Ben taught there. Dr. Clark taught at Cornell. I mean, Cornell was, and the concept of the Cornell program was it was Pan-African, and that is precisely why Dr. Turner and Robert Harris and those people chose that term. But I think that what happens is that there is this, and New York probably is the most intense part of it. What happens in New York State is you have a strong Caribbean community, which, if it allows itself, can be easily divided against the African American population and vice versa. So that is where you get the struggle. But the problem with having a Caribbean studies department at Cornell is that eventually you will have a Jamaican studies program saying, we just don't want to deal with Caribbean, we want to be a Jamaican studies, or we are Haitian studies. You see what I'm saying? So you get further division. That's my worry about it. And that's why at Temple, we argued that you had to have a discipline. In other words, rather than have area studies to say we're going to study Africa, we're going to study African America, we're going to study South America, we said you can study any region of the world where Black people are, and you can study any interest that Black people are engaged in, whether it's medicine or architecture or social institutions or literature or whatever. But you have to study from the standpoint of the African people, African culture exercising its own agency in the narrative. That is so it gives us a way to hold people together. And I can't imagine now, maybe it could have, but I have to suspect that it will happen, that at Temple someone would say, you know what, we need a South American Black studies program, or we need a Korean. I don't know. We don't know what will happen, but no, we got to deal with that. And I think that on the question of the Padmore situation, I think you're perfectly correct. I mean, what got me to write this book, which is out, it's on Amazon now, Afrocentric Pan-African vision, an Afrocentric Pan-African vision, is because I read some brother who wrote to me that socialism, Pan-Africanism equals socialism, and that socialism equals Pan-Africanism. That is not correct. That is totally wrong. And you cannot see where it comes from unless you understand that all African revolutionary movements after 1945 took a socialist turn because capitalism was so corrupt and capitalism was so oppressive. So all the brothers, and sisters who were involved said, we're not going to support Portugal. We're not going to support, we're going to be against them. And the Soviet Union of course, was really the big power at that time on the opposite side, and that's where our movement went without ever interrogating our culture. And I was in so before the COVID thing hit, I was in I spoke at the Moscow Institute of the Academy of Sciences in February 27th, 28th. I was in Moscow. And this is the position I took. I took this position with them because now, of course, they are beginning to question their own history, the whole Soviet thing. And so there's a lot of discussion among the intellectuals in Russia about where they have been in regards to Africa. So it's interesting to me to see that we still have brothers and sisters here who are trying to push a line that even the Russians have abandoned. But it's an interesting phenomenon. But we have to be clear. We need to have our culture. I'm looking at the gallery. I see Dr. Dove here. That's one of the great scholars who write on African women. How you doing, Dr. Dove? Yeah. So it's really great. This is a great group of people here. And Brother Akil Kalafani, who used to bring me to speak. I get to see you, brother. All you good people. I'm so Sister Shadidi, I think, is here. So anyway, thank you so much for that question.
Yes, I want to spring off. Can I still be heard? Yes. Okay. I wanted to spring off of what your last comment, which is Dr. Shadidi is here. As you know, earlier in the program, I told you that on the 13th of December, and it's also pasted early in the chat, we will have a fundraiser for the Peace Healthcare Center, of which Dr. Shadidi Kenzie is the director and the founder. And I did explain to everyone that Dr. Shadidi had a bout with COVID. I'm glad to see she's looking well and hope she's feeling well also. And but we're going to have CMOTAP is going to have a fundraiser for her on the 13th of December, and I'll paste that information again later on into that. Today, Dr. Kalfani raised his hand. I muted him, but now I'm going to unmute him. Dr. Kalfani, you had a question or statement for Dr. Asante?
Yes. First of all, let me ask, since I'm here with my elders, let me ask if I have permission to speak.
Yes, you have.
Thank you. I want to recognize all our elders here, Dr. and Mrs. Jeffries and Baba Asante and Baba McIntosh. All the brothers and sisters here, I appreciate you. And I just wanted to say that you said here that what voices speak to you from the depths of your own people. And I think that when you made that statement, it resonates so much about the things that I speak about. But I think that one of the challenges we have now, and I'd like you to maybe address this, is that the young folks are so perplexed with all of the contacts that they have on social media, right? So that everything becomes acceptable, whether it's racial or gender or religion, that there's no boundaries and attachment for a lot of the young folks that I teach today, and sometimes even with my own children, with the whole idea of, as you say, Afrocentricity. I would say Afrocentricity, right? Because we Afrocentricity, however we want to talk about it. But the basic idea is that how do we contextualize what it is that you're talking about with young folks who have so many distractions, and we're trying to reach them where they are, and that they have both distractions and attachments to things that are going around today that that prevent them from seeing the truth in our African ancestry, and the point that you make here that I made the quote of.
Well, thank you very much for that question, Brother Kalfani. The thing is that there is, of course, a movement which we now call Afrofuturism or Afrocentric futurism, which allows us to use African icons and images from the past, whether they're we can constantly talk about the pyramids, but whether they are the Ankhs or whether they're Sankofa, all of these attributes and various icons that come out of our culture, whether it's Harriet Tubman or Danny the Maroon, from Jamaica or Desaline. All of these can be used in order to project the present and the future. And this is what I think one of the lessons of Wakanda and the Black Panther is, even if we have other problems with it, is that there is a hunger on the part of our young people for some relevance to not just contemporary society, but to historical information. And then that may mean that we may need to create new modes of communication with them, short videos rather than long videos, rather than give them a long lecture like I just gave. Give them snippets, snippets of African history, Afrocentric understanding. And then, by the way, we should just, there's nothing wrong with using Afrocentric. So let's just use Afrocentric. And one thing we could solve that problem where we won't have division between whether it's Afra, it's Afrocentric. That's what I started it with in 1980. That's the word that came out. And even before that, in 1973, it was Afrocentric World Review. Even before that, it was Nkrumah with Afrocentric Encyclopedia. Afrocentric is fine. It's a good word. So let's not have a debate about little things. Let's deal with the big thing. The big thing here is, how do we get these young people involved? And we get them involved bit by bit by what we call, some people are calling speculative types of images where people can speculate and project what the pyramids would look like in the 22nd century or something. I mean, you got to use everything. We have to use all parts of our knowledge and capabilities.
Okay, I'm going to have to ask, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ask everybody, I'm going to be muting everybody again. It's hard to ask your question in 30 seconds. So I'm just going to say, write your question down and I will read them to Dr. Asante. There was one from an iPhone that said, Garvey was asked if he was a Jamaican. I am an African. Would you claim a continent over an island? And I'm going to read a couple of the questions and you can address them as you like, Dr. Asante. There's another question.
Well, the answer to that, I'm like Garvey, I'm an African.
Okay. There's a question. Brother Molefi, is there an African mineral standard that an African economy can be built on? That's from Brother William Jones.
Well, yeah, there is. I mean, in terms of physical minerals in the ground, like gold and oil and stuff.
I think that's what, like America was initially supposed to be built on a gold standard. Is there any type of mineral standard in Africa that an economy?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that Africa can have, and gold, number one, is fundamental. I mean, there's more gold in Africa than anywhere else, I think, with exception maybe of Russia. But yeah, the gold standard would be fundamental to Africa. The problem is that right now, gold is being transported out of Africa to a very high degree to Europe. There would be no European economies if it's not for the raw industrial materials of Africa. France couldn't survive without Africa. And that's why they have tied up at least 13 or 14 African nations. They have tied it up to the franc, because they are able to get as much gold or uranium out of those countries as possible and give the Africans as little as possible. But that's happening. But Cabral was correct in the 1960s. Here's the problem. They will be aggressive. They will be assertive. But our problem is our weakness. If you had African leadership or strong African polities, people in there, then this could not happen. This can only happen when you have weak leadership that is willing to cave in. Suppose African nation says, "Look, as what's his name, Wad did. One time Wad did this. Wad disappointed me on some things, but Wad was clear-headed about a lot of things too. I worked with him for several years. He was the president of Senegal. Wad told the French, he said, okay, if you cannot give us 60% of the profits from what you say is in our earth, then we just leave it in the earth. We don't have to develop it right now. We'll wait until our time comes. I would like to see that happen. But then, of course, you get all the pressures of poverty, all the pressures of people wanting, say, if we have it, why can't we use it and exploit it? But Zimbabwe has more diamonds than any other country in the world. And yet Israel is the biggest supplier of diamonds in the world. How does that happen? And it only happens because of the way the markets are controlled, because they have to have these raw materials from Africa, you see. But the African leadership is not strong enough to say, you know what, we're not selling, we're not giving, we're going to fight and we'll guard our minds and so on.
All right, thank you, Dr. Asante. We also had a question from Yusef Salam. He said that, I'm sorry, just have a little patience as I have to scroll. He asked, he said, Harold Cruz again discusses the issue of African American and the African Caribbean American regarding the Garvey movement, the nationalist integration movements, Black Power movement, and is Dr. Asante saying it still exists? That's the question as it reads.
Well, I hate to say this because Harold Cruz is not around to defend himself, and we brought him to Temple when we first started our PhD program back in 1980, 89 or something, and people normally quote him from the crisis of the Negro intellectual. But Cruz had many good points, but he was wrong on one fundamental aspect of his thinking.
I'll mute it as soon as I can.
Yeah, and he was wrong on one fundamental aspect of his thinking. He was an African Americanist. And as an African Americanist, he also was much like what I used to call the people at University of Massachusetts, Amherst, basically a 1619 guy. That there was you don't have to get into ancient Africa. You don't have to get into other Africa. You just start the African American studies with 1619, when the Black people landed in Virginia and so on. And Harold Cruz saw he felt that dealing with the Caribbean and dealing with other forces were in a way taking away from the strength of the African American community. So I like Cruz's understanding that we needed a theory. I always tell people that I believe that reading him gave me the idea that it was necessary for African Americans and the African world to develop more theoretical approaches to how we do things. But I think he was totally wrong in his regionalism. And I've worked, and even if he's listening, it is true in terms of how I've worked over the years with my brother, Maulana Karenga, on this issue. This is a big issue. You have to, and he got it much earlier than anybody else. And I think it was from the 1970s that Karenga, of course, during the 1977 Festac, that he got this whole worldview, and he added a lot to the richness of his work. But it's easy to just get involved in your own community. You say, well, I'm just going to deal with Blacks in Britain. oh, I'm going to just deal with blacks in the Caribbean. I'm not going to deal with blacks in Brazil. But for me and Leonard Jeffries, we say the whole black world is our world. You know what I mean? We everywhere. You know what I mean? We just, I mean, when I'm in Brazil, I'm black Brazil. I'm a Brazilian. You know what I mean? When I'm in Colombia, hey, it's the same. Ghana, South Africa, that's the way I roll. So. Yeah, so that's it's a difference, and it's a beautiful thing to see this, and I've seen it in a lot of growth in a lot of brothers and sisters.
Dr. Asante, I have a few questions here now. One is from a person, I can answer this, is to me. He says, as an elder, I would like to acknowledge Dr. Leonard Jeffries and Dr. James Small, who I have known for 40 years. Thank you, and I will buy your book and in Harlem. I don't understand the last part of it, but Brother Selman, you probably were here a little late. I did acknowledge Dr. Jeffries and Dr. Small, and it's my intention at 4:30, because it's 4:16 now, to actually ask for a few words from some of the elders here. I see Brother Gallman from down in South Carolina. I see Sister Monroe Nubian. I see Brenda Walker. We have a lot of leaders here on this talk. Here's a question from Brother Askuli Mitchell. He says, Dr. Asante, Dr. J and I talk about Africanism all the time, as well as the constant war against, it's probably Pan-Africanism, as well as the constant war against Africans, particularly the intellectual war, as Dr. Carruthers called it, that is going on in academia and media. Can you speak on, one, how communism has been used against the African people? Garvey was called one, King, Robeson, etc. The destruction of African and Caribbean countries because they allied with the USSR is Cold War, as well as the persistent attempts to shut down African-centered institutions on college campuses and the current trend to recenter the focus of Black studies on LGBTQ history. So those are, several questions that the brother had. If you'd like me to read any one of them again, I can.
That brother wants me to give another lecture, which I'm not going to do,
yes.
but I will do the best I can in answering those questions. And let me just recognize Brother Smalls too, Professor Smalls. I didn't recognize him earlier myself, and I just want to, because he's a brother who's made a lot of impact on the world and on me, and I appreciate him so much. Here's the thing, and I'm going to say this quickly. We really should not even get involved in whether or not about communism or capitalism. Those are not our issues. I don't even, to me, I don't, if you read all my books, you will never read anything about anything like that. Let your debate that. Let them have that discussion. And that's not a part of what I do. So I don't, I can critique it even if it's used against African culture. And I think that in terms of claiming that Robeson, for example, was a communist, I think Robeson probably would have said, yes, that's no problem with it. I mean, I was at UCLA when Angela Davis was attacked. I was the person, because I came out of communication, I was the communication representative for the Angela Davis Defense Fund at UCLA. So I know these attacks on Black people for being but she was. So it wasn't, it's not like the white people are smart too. It's not like they don't know what you have said or what you have signed up for, but that's not a debate with me. I mean, a Black person can assume, and say, this is the way I want to go because I think that I'm going to develop this and that. I can critique it and that kind of thing. So I don't, I think that they would use what I think that's more dangerous if they attack us for being African. That's what I would fight against. That's what they were trying to do with Leonard Jeffries. That's the issue. And I came to to court with Leonard Jeffries because that we were struggling over that. That's what that brother was standing up for us on that. He was no, I mean, that's the politics of culture. That's the deep thing, you see, that we've got to relate to. On the LBGT thing, let me just say this. I always tell people, and I tell our students this, that for me, if you talk about those issues as part of Black studies or Africana studies, I have a problem with it because there are queer studies departments. So if you got a queer studies department, why do you want to turn Black studies also into a queer studies department? You don't have to do that. There could be certainly courses dealing with gender in Africana studies, but it doesn't have to be this whole emphasis on some sort of queer studies program. And what has happened with queer studies in the in the contemporary sense is basically what happened with the Marxists a few years ago when we first started Black Studies with friends like Abdul Al-Kalimat. What happened? People who were Marxists could not find a Marxist department. There were no departments of Marxism. So what they ended up doing was coming to Black Studies. And so that's where we get the struggles in Black studies. That's the same thing with the queer studies. People, they can't find a department that will accept them, except they say, well, we can be in Black studies. So they come to Black studies. They're not in sociology like that. You don't have, they're not in political science like that, but they're in our departments, you see. So it's a different question than where if you ask, for example, do you think we should deal with the question of gender? Because we should. I don't have a problem with that. I don't even have a problem with us dealing with something that Nadav has been teaching at Temple and writing about, and that is the whole question of humanity. That in fact, if people are human, then their gender, their race, their color, their creed, all of these things are minor things compared to the fact that we are human beings. So it's a way to try to talk about culture instead of talking about gender or race or this intersectionality that supposedly is supposed to be a new thing. It's not a new thing. Black people have always understood intersections and so forth, and we've always had to deal with them from the enslavement here in this country till now.
Say, Dr. Asante, there's a bunch of questions here from Brother Quadro Goldman. He wants to know, would you speak further? In fact, there's an easier question. Sister Maleka had a question on, can you give us contact information for you?
Contact information for me. I'm just trying to figure out what is the best contact, probably through you.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
They can contact you. You contact me.
All right. It's all, and that I've pasted into the chat already, so you can look it up. Just don't get the wrong one. Get the one that says correction, because the area code is 347. Okay. There's a question from Joseph. I'm sorry. Dr. McKee. Sometimes people are making statements, and I think it's a question. Comment. Listen, please don't come back. Don't make me mute you again. All right. Dr. Goldman asked, would you speak further on the origins and players in the ADOS movement, please?
I will speak a little bit about it. I'm not going to speak with authority on it, but I know that there's a brother and a sister in California who many people say came out of the Republican strategic movement to try to bring in Black people into the Republican Party. They came out with a very interesting line, which was basically an attack on N'COBRA. The N'COBRA organization, was an organization that has been fighting for years, for decades, for reparations. And so their argument was that reparations should only be paid to Africans in the United States who are the direct descendants of enslaved people. in the United States. That it should not include people who are in any way Jamaican or I think in my case, my wife is from Costa Rica, so she grew up in America, right? But she couldn't participate in any reparations because that's a whole different thing. So they have taken a very strong position, ADOS, on that, which I think is a reactionary position, and it's a limited position because in the end, all African people deserve reparations. The African countries deserve where Africans left from deserve reparations, and Africans in Colombia, in Ecuador, and Peru deserve reparations. So the question of reparations may have to be a global question and not a simple question where one group of Black people are going to argue against another group of Black people about who should get what from the European population or the European governments, and that's just not it. But that's their argument, is that it should only be for Africans who are direct descendants of the enslaved people, you see, in the United States, and not the people that Marcus Garvey thought of as being the whole Black world.
I have two related questions, and then I'm going to ask to hear from Professor Smalls and any other people you would like to say a few words, Dr. Jeffries. Anybody you'd like to say a few words, Dr. Asante. But we're going to start with John
Dr.
Brinkley.
Dove. I would like to hear from Dr. Dove too.
Yes,
Dr. Dove wrote the book African Mothers, and she is one of the great scholars that we have at Temple.
All right, and I have
from England earlier this year, so just like for her to just say something about.
Yes, sir. And so we're going to do that, as I said before, at about 4:30. Right now, I have a question from John Brinkley. He wants to know, how would you evaluate Gaddafi's role in establishing the United States of Africa? And then there's someone named D who says, why do we keep saying United States of Africa instead of United Countries of Africa?
Okay, well, because we say United States of Africa because that was Garvey's term at one time, and two, some people who got it have said African Federation. Some people said the Union of African States. But how do I evaluate it? Boy, you asked the wrong person on this, because I'm disappointed. I'm very disappointed. It should have happened. It was supposed to happen earlier, and then they kicked it down the road. I was in a meeting in 2004. I think I mentioned this once when I was at Simotap. I was in a meeting in 2004 with the president of Ghana, the president of South Africa, of Ethiopia, and it was really chaired by Obasanjo at his palace at Aso Mountain in Abuja. And it was very interesting, small group. They had maybe 10 scholars there. I was one of them, to talk about it and to give them some suggestions. And they were a subcommittee of the African Union. They were supposed to bring into existence this United States of Africa, because there are many things that are already in place. Most of us don't realize. I mean, they already have an African parliament. They've already decided on the languages of Africa, and they already decided on what the currency should be called and all of that. But what they haven't done yet is to talk about integrating the economies, and also of integrating the political structures, so that you would have a single president and maybe a couple of vice presidents and so on. So what they decided in 2004 at that Abuja meeting was that it should be done in 2017. But by 2017, all those people who were sat around those tables were no longer in office. They were gone, and nothing happened in 2017. And that's why one of the reasons that Dr. Amma Mazama and I created something called AI, the Afrocentricity International, because we said, well, you know what? Ultimately, it's not going to be with the president. It's going to have to be with conscientizing the masses of people so that as people get to be president, they will have gone through a process of believing in a Pan-Africanism spirit. That was the aim of that organization when it was in its heyday. So I'm disappointed. There's some disappointments there.
Asante, at your request, I'm going to call for Professor Nadav to say a few words. I'm going to tell you we have about 4 people that I think really have to speak, and I'm going to ask each person, please limit your remarks to under 5 minutes so that I can get everybody in.
3 minutes.
Dr. Asante says 3 minutes. Okay. Professor Nadav, let me you can unmute yourself, I think. Let's see. Asked to unmute you, yes.
Thank you. I wasn't expecting to say anything. I just am so humbled and honored to be amongst such great thinkers and speakers. Thank you, Dr. Asante. I'm also proud to be a professor in the Department of Africology. As an Afrocentric theorist, I'm really working on Diop's idea of culture. And so I've been looking at culture, as he has done, to see that differences amongst humanity, the major differences amongst humanity are culturally based. Male-female reciprocity, balance, truth, harmony that we know comes out of Kemet is the foundation, as Diop said, of African cultural beliefs and behaviors and so on. And that Europeans and Arabized people prefer the patriarchal domination, and out of that comes race, the construction of race, which has been to divide humanity and to oppress and demonize African people, particularly the blackest skinned African people. So I would say that when agreeing with Dr. Asante, that when we're looking at we need to be specific about the culture or thoughts and behaviors of the people who call themselves Pan-Africanists. That's why it was so important to highlight Padmore, because he was using a European centered, Eurocentric determination of Africa, and it couldn't fit into the way that African people have viewed themselves, wish to become again if they're not already there, with all the different cultural oppressions on our minds as to who we're supposed to be and so on. So Afrocentric theory enables us to understand ourselves culturally as African people and to work towards the liberation of African people in a nutshell. I hope that wasn't too long, and thank you for giving me that moment.
Thank you, sister. I'm going to ask Dr. Small, Professor Small, say a few words, please. You're still here? They may have moved on. I see Dr. Rosalind. I had wanted to ask a young sister, Ro Nubian. She's the daughter of Brother D. Nubian, writer of How You Gonna Make Black Nation Rise, for technical advice, because she had a room full of young people at CMOTAP last night. In fact, she couldn't let everybody in. But if there were 25 people there, they were mainly young people, and there were lots of people online at the same time. And I was going to ask her, how does she do it? And they spoke about Kemet, they spoke about all things Afrocentric. So there are some people that are attracting the young people with a very positive message. And she had it interspersed with a lot of cultural presentations, culture as in music and that sort of, but there was was talk also, and art. All of it was in there, and graphic art. All of it was in there last night. So, Doctor, what I'm going to do is to say, then anybody who feels that they would like to say something can say it in under 5 minutes. To just put it to me in the chat now, and I will open up your mic. Also, I want to remind people of the options to giving to CMOTAP. You can mail to CMOTAP at 13505 Rockaway Boulevard. You can send a Cash App to Dr. CMOTAP. It's in the chat. All right. So anyone else, please send me something in the chat if you want to speak, and you can have up to 3 minutes. No, I see first of all, Dr. Rosalind Jeffries. Let me ask Dr. Rosalind Jeffries, would you like to say a few words, Dr. J? Ask you to unmute. See if she does. I don't know if she's still there.
Okay. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure all over these years to live a life. You say, who are you speaking to? That we must have been speaking to an army of people to keep us alive and continuing on. In talking about Africa and the United States of Africa, the United Countries of Africa, we should not forget to call the name of Ambassador Arikana and the work struggles that she has been through for all of us in the diaspora, and also for the Africa, the continent. And I do have something to say to our wonderful years and years of struggle, Dr. Molefi Asante. I continue with the book that I helped him to write, the journey, African-American history, a journey of liberation. The students that I'm still teaching online are interested.
Can you hold it?
Dr. Jeffries, you have to unmute yourself. Dr. Rosalind Jeffries, you have to unmute yourself. Dr. Rosalind, I don't know if you hear me. You have to unmute yourself.
Does at the lower left.
Yes, I
Okay,
did.
she got it.
Is it okay now?
Yes, we hear you now, but it looks like you're on a different phone because it's still saying you're muted here, but we hear you.
We're on the same. Oh, did it jump back mute? No, it's still unmuted. Okay,
We
so
hear you. We hear you though. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to say that we were talking with Renoko Rashidi, and he has a wealth of data and information that's rare. He was talking about 1,000 photographs of this, that, and the other. And so the question he had was, what in the world is he going to do with all of the stuff he collected? I was talking about Dr. Leonard Jeffries and storages that he had from Black Studies. And so I know that Dr. Molefi Asante has stuff from, I remember he had a museum when he was younger in Buffalo, and has moved and we heard what he said. And sometimes we can't trust the Columbia Universities and the Schomburg Library that he should have been the head of. So we are still asking, what are we going to do collective with the multiplication of information that we need to know about to pass on to the next generation. But anyway, this is a wonderful opportunity during this time, particularly the coronavirus, but we are the people who march through the storms. We are delighted with the fantastic things that Dr. McIntosh has done, bringing us all together.
And brothers and sisters, just a few words from me. I've just enjoyed watching this flow. but we are on a victorious path. And it is our responsibility to stay on the path with the right objectives. We come from a history which said we were not even human. And now we're moving into our understanding that we are the human family. So we need to keep going as we are, handle the problems as they come up to us, and then make sure that we don't get caught up in the confusion. So that I'm just sitting back. Rosin and I will be celebrating on Sunday our 56th anniversary together. It has been an enormous experience to go through the Sheikh Anta Diop's, the Dr. Clark's, the Dr. Ben's, the Shashi McIntyre's, and our own family. This is a history that cannot be misdirected by confusion over isms and whatnot. We have to take this African way of life and systematize it so we can pass it on to the younger generations. We can't expect them to have the experience of a Molefi Asante. Can you imagine how enormous, coming up out of Waycross, Georgia, and going on to sitting in Moscow and sitting in these, do you understand what we have? What we have, we just have to stay on the course, package it, systematize it, and pass it on for these generations. So I'm just so satisfied, I don't know what to do. I'm just so satisfied, but I want Dr. Mack and the others to continue to do what they're doing and don't let the obstacles and the confusions throw us off course. Aluta continua, the struggle continues.
Thank you, Dr. Jeffries.
Brother James, just let me say, from one Georgia boy to another Georgia boy, you did good. but I'm from Valdosta.
Valdosta, yes. Wait, I love you.
All right. Listen, I want to acknowledge this next brother that's going to say something because he helps a lot with the technical things. Like we had a problem yesterday. We had to transfer the hosts on this Zoom type things. And I know he's helped brother Dr. Leonard Jeffries and Sister Rosalind Jeffries get on the Zooms. And he's a young scholar in his own right. And I'm speaking about brother Charles Asakuli Mitchell. He has some things he would like to say.
Thank you, Baba. First, I want to ask my elders for permission as my brother Akil Kafani did. May I have permission to speak?
Yes, you may.
Certainly.
And it's important for those that are young people and even for the elders that we reaffirm this every chance that we get because it must be a continuity in our culture. We respect our elders because our elders have been through struggles that we can't even imagine. So even when we don't think they're right or correct or some things, we have to give respect to their age and the wisdom that they've acquired in those years of experience and what they experienced. We can't ever go through what we can't even imagine rather what Dr. Jeffries and Dr. Asante, both Dr. Jeffries and Dr. Asante, Dr. Matt and these other elders that are in front of us have been through. Many of us can't even imagine what they've been through, I'm telling you. And just in my 30 years of working with Baba and Mama Jay, I could tell you that you probably wouldn't even believe some of the things that I've seen as the fly on the wall as a young student, working with them and assisting them, what they said to Gil Noble in the offices of WABC. I was right there when they had that top legal person tell Gil Noble that they are not going to bring somebody else to let him groom somebody else to replace him. So we have to remember that we are at war. These folks may smile in our face and do the things that they do that seem cordial, but they are just as racist as a Donald Trump and all these other folks that we know that are wolves. And we always have to remember that. And we give our tribute to our elders by asking for permission. And if I didn't get permission, then I would not speak. It's not because I'm a little boy or think I'm, thinking a young-minded way. It's because I was brought up to respect my elders, and learning this African tradition just reaffirms everything that my nana and my mother and family taught me. So to continue, so Dr. Mack asked about how we could bring in the youth. And so from my observation, and I also have worked with Sister Nubian Meraway, we did the first presentation for youth. Normally we have our pilgrimage on May 19th, Malcolm X's birthday, but she and myself and Sister Marcia put together the year before last, the first event that was dedicated strictly for African youth to educate them about Malcolm and bring them together on that day. So one of the things that I know from working with her is that her daughters are an integral part of everything that she does. So we have to remember family. Many of us sometimes as adults and the elders that I've seen, their work is here. Excuse me, I forgot my video wasn't on. So their work is over here, but their family is over here. In the African sense, that should not be happening. Our families must be an integral part of everything that we do with our people, because that's how you train the youth and prepare them for leadership, by having them involved in the work. And one of the things that she also does is the use of culture. Her daughters do poetry, her daughters sing, her daughters know African dance, and we have to reintegrate in a conscious way, because we have it in an unconscious way, but we have to integrate it in a conscious way, African culture, every chance that we get, and make it not something that African youth say, oh boy, I got to go to that African function. We want them to be excited about going to functions where Africa is mentioned, because that's how you erase the stigma in their minds that African is inferior, that this European mess that we're in is somehow better. Because in my experience in working with youth, when I mention Africa, they say, oh, Mr. Mitchell, don't talk to me about that Africa stuff. White people control everything. White people run the schools. White people, you know, they got raps out now when the rappers are saying, when they talk about being wealthy, they talk about having white people money. Can you imagine that? Mansa Musa almost destroyed the American economy or the world economy with the riches that he had. But our young people somehow identify wealth and intelligence and greatness with white folks. So we have to work to erase that stigma. Mama J mentioned Runoko Rashidi. Runoko Rashidi, Dr. Brother Clemson Brown, they have large media banks, and the young people today are very visual. So we need to figure out how to use this technology more effective. And like Mama J said, we might take a 2-hour video and break it down. But finally, I see you, Dr. Mack. Finally, we have to give them information that's useful. We have to end the contradictions that exist. We have to prepare them and pass on leadership, not wait until our elders get old and pass away, and then you have to pick up and figure out on your own. We have to prepare them for leadership. We have to listen to what they're telling us and what they see, that so the work that we do with them and the work in the community can come through that lens also and be effective, because some of us are listening based or doing work and the methods that we're using are outdated. We need to talk to these young people and find out what methods are effective for today. And we have to teach them history that improves our lives, not just teaching them history just to be teaching them history. One of our elders or ancestors said, take what's useful and discard all the rest. That's what we need to do. And finally, like I said, we need to work with them to end the stigmas in their mind and have conversations with them on, to show that Black people have always been successful, show them that we are at war, and show them that we have won the war or won battles and that we can win this battle, but we have to have faith and trust in our own ability to do so.
Thank you, Brother Asakuli. I see that waiting, the person you were just speaking about, her ears should be burning, with Sister Mero, Sister Mero Nubian. I want to ask her to be very brief because Dr. Asante has to leave, but it's appropriate that we end with you because she had more young people in CMO Tap last night than we've had in a long time, other than our Kwanzaa programs. So I'm going to, the question was, Sister Mero, what do you do to keep the youth involved in this struggle? Let me unmute you.
Greetings. Greetings. Yes, greetings. I'm sorry. Greetings, all the elders. Thank you so very much for even inviting me and welcoming me to speak on the call. Thank you. Greetings, Baba Asante. I enjoyed listening to your lecture. I was in here with my children. We were listening to you very keenly in our route running some errands. Thank you again, Baba McIntosh, for allowing us to have our program last night, the 6th annual Thanksgiving. One of the things that we do, we encourage our children with activities, meaning that all of the programs that we have, we make sure that if it's not some type of arts and craft, if it's not musical, if it's some type of contribution coming directly from the children. We need our children to always be present in this plight of African liberation. We want our children to recognize and understand why we are so invested into our movement. We don't want our children to be desensitized by all of the issues that affect our movement, and they need to know that it is imperative that they join the movement, because we are doing this ultimately for our future, and our children are our future. So that is why we always make sure that we have either children presenting what they have learned, and we want to know specifically how our children feel, because that is just most important. And when we have these programs, a lot of times we have a lot of lectures going on, but they're not necessarily being transmitted. And I'm sorry, excuse me. Somebody tell me, move my car. 1 second.
Mhm.
Sorry, my brother. My apologies. I'm very sorry. I wasn't trying to ignore you. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm in somebody's property. Like all the Hispanics came out like they was gonna tell me that stuff. I'm very sorry. I'm sorry. Thank you. I love you. I love you.
Okay.
Anyway, so sorry y'all. In motion. We always in motion. Hold that. I got my camera woman here. Hold the camera. Thanks. So it's important that we have children programs, because a lot of times there's so much great information that's being given from our elders, but it's just hard for our children to receive it, whether it's their attention span or whether it's the language that we are speaking. And so we want to make sure we speak to children in a way that they can understand and receive the message. And I thank all the elders for doing a phenomenal job in keeping this movement going and encouraged. Consciousness is nothing without the activation of. And so that is what Thanksgiving's mission is, to activate that consciousness and not just talk about it.
Thank you so much,
And
Sister
we
Love.
continue to give them a platform. Yes. No, they don't always have a platform, so you always.
Okay, listen, I'm going to
Yes,
stop you
thank
because
you.
Dr. Asante has to go, but thank you so much,
Thank
Sister
you so
Merle.
very much. Thank you.
And thank you, Brother Asakuli. Thank you, everybody who attended today. I want everybody who's here to come back on the 13th. I'm acting like we're in a virtual place, but I'm acting like I want you to come back on December the 13th when we have our fundraiser for the Peace Healthcare Center. If you need the information for that, I'm going to leave it on here for a little while. It's in the chat. Make sure to take it from the bottom of the chat. We have the correct information there. Also give to CMOTAP. You can, but the meeting on the 13th is solely for Peace Healthcare Center. You don't know how important healthcare is for you until you need it. And I'm telling you, this sister has taken care. There's just about everybody I talk to, I find out has been a patient of hers. She is a member of NACO and a solid sister. So that's December the 13th. Look in the chat. We thank you, Dr. Asante. We thank you, Dr. Jeffries and Dr. Rosalind Jeffries, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Kafil Alfani. We thank you, Professor Nadab. We thank you, Brother Gorman. We thank you, everybody who attended. I can't say all. We had 51 names and it went down to 44. Now it's up to 45 again. It went back up from the low 40s. Thank you all for attending. And I will be in touch with you very soon, Dr. Asante. Thank you so much, everybody. And get home safe, stay strong, and stay focused.
Thank you.
That's it. But look in the chat for the ways you can donate, and look in the chat for the information for the fundraiser for Peace Healthcare Center. If you don't know how to get into the chat, hover your cursor over the bottom of the page, click the chat, go in there, scroll up and down, and look and see the information. Everybody get home. I mean, you're already home, but be safe.
What time?
The time is in the chat. It's in the chat right there. I think it's 3 o'clock. From 3 o'clock, it's going to be a longer program. It's from 3 to 7. We have 5 medical practitioners. Dr. Jawara Hunter, who's double certified in in anesthesiology and in rehab medicine, and also did a internship in pediatrics. I met him at Harlem Hospital. We were in pediatrics. Dr. Lewis, who has experience in emergency medicine and has worked in emergency rooms and also ophthalmology and also integrative medicine. He's now a community healer dealing with integrative medicine. We have Dr. Nima Hooker. For those of you who used to come to the functions given by the Black Family Collective, Marimba I Need, Uriah Hunter, and so forth, Nima Hooker is the daughter of Dr. Hooker, who at one point was the president of the Harlem Hospital, Harlem House Staff Association. His daughter is now board certified family practitioner. Topic is going to be, I'm going to be there also, speaking from a mental health aspect. And the five of us are going to be talking about your health in the context of COVID. Whether it's a pandemic or whatever it is, we still have to take care of ourselves and we still have to avoid certain kinds of myths. I wouldn't tell anybody to take any kind of a vaccine, unless after you've waited and your practitioners have waited, it's the thing to do. But the bottom line is that this thing is real. It's not a fake. I've heard people that think it's fake. I know because my wife works in a hospital where they were putting the bodies in big trucks, where they had to get 500 extra nurses just there, several thousand throughout the Health and Hospitals Corporation. During the highest part of this epidemic, they couldn't keep up with the sick people, really sick people. I'm talking about people in an ICU. So we need to hear from our Afrocentric health practitioners. Nima was raised in an African-centered school run by her father. Her and two of her siblings graduated with honors from Claflin University the same year. One was a year ahead, one was on time, one was in a 5-year program for engineering. The two daughters are the first two people I ever met who got full rides to medical school. And that's after being trained in an African-centered school. So you're in for a treat just from the standpoint of the information. And at the same time, we're going to be able to do something useful to preserve that which we have. The Peace Healthcare Center is a resource, is a valuable resource for our community. So I'm asking you all to come on. Those who need to give me contact information, put it in the chat. This entire program has been recorded. The chat has been recorded. I will get back to each of you if you contact me in this chat on the side here. Thank you for your attendance. It's time though, I heard Professor Small say one time, even if you have the most delicious of meals, if you eat too much, you can get sick. So we've had a lot. We have a lot from today to digest. I thank all of you. Get back to what you're doing safely. Peace and blessings.
They've been filming him from home.
Yes, the person he was young. Yeah. He still both of those differently. Was that one that was
but that's these were the one that was. Yes, that's what these things.
Oh, look at this. Oh, look at that. We got it. That's nice. Look at those things. Those are beautiful.
You gotta
Go to corners and get a marker or something then? A permanent marker. I don't want to put this off. I'm like, while I'm in the still have the Thanksgiving spirit. I don't want to put it off.